We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA. We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Looks like the rain has gone.
G'day and welcome to another episode of the Mankind Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Clift, and today we are going into the vault of episodes that we have recorded. In fact, last year on Memorial Day, we invited a bunch of veterans onto the show to honor those that they have loved and lost in war and in the service. And this discussion, the reason we wanted to pull it out of the vault is because of just how poignant it was. In fact, this was the previous show that we used to have called Masks Off Monday, not masks like that we wore for the pandemic, not PPE equipment. It was masks off as in we take our metaphorical masks off to connect and be real. And that's what you're going to hear in this conversation with five incredible men that have risked their lives, risked their health for our freedoms. And so internally grateful for these men to join us. They're going to give their perspectives on their friends that they've lost, on what it means to make the ultimate sacrifice, and how you, maybe someone who hasn't served, can support those who have. And at the end, you're going to hear some really cool insights into what you can do to really honor those that, you know what, may have come out of the service a little worse for wear and maybe not as good as when they went into it. So I hope you enjoy this the special commemorative episode of the Mankind Podcast, a group panel discussion for Memorial Day. Enjoy. Alrighty. G'day guys, Brandon Clift here from the Mankind Project, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 37 of Masks Off Monday, a very special episode this week coming to you as we commemorate Memorial Day here in the United States. And so we wanted to do something special to honor those that we've lost, honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms, for our liberties, for our safeties, and bring on five other men whom I deeply respect that have they themselves served. And we're just going to come together, share the memories of those that we've lost, that we've had with us, and just create a cool discussion to kind of chat about, like, what does Memorial Day mean to us here. Of course, I myself haven't served, so I'm going to be a fly on the wall and be here mainly just to facilitate things going on. But to kick things off, Dean Ray, my man, if you could introduce yourself, service branch, and share with us a little piece that you wrote up this morning.
Hey everyone, my name is Dean Ray. I was in the Marine Corps. My job in there was actually a helicopter crew chief, which is essentially just flying around on aircraft, working on the door guns, and then being an in-flight mechanic when the case needed. So I wrote a little something today, just kind of share with my own internal monologue. I know Memorial Day for a lot of veterans is kind of a interesting holiday, if you will, because a lot of us are dealing with a lot of loss, and we aren't sure how to even be in these type of moments. So today I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on this as I kind of mold that idea over. So today, as with every Memorial Day, it can feel a bit strange for those of us that are still here to observe the occasion. There's a lot of conflicting emotions about what you should be thinking and what you should be doing. And I think the answer to those concerns are very dependent on the experiences you've had, and there really isn't a wrong answer to those really personal questions we ask ourselves. Something that's held true to me throughout the years is that sharing memories of the people we lost, it actually ensures they're still making an impression on my life and the lives of the people around me. The reasons I think we mourn their losses is twofold. So first, we miss our friends. We know that their families are experiencing this same sense of loss that we are, and their families are feeling with an intensity that we just can't really fathom. We can only observe and respect that burden that they're carrying for the rest of their lives, and that weighs really heavy on many of us. The second part is the fact that each of these people that we met, that we respected, they brought some sort of unique perspective to the world. And these perspectives changed others around them for the better in some kind of way. And now that influence is gone. So the world lost something special that can't be replaced. And like that's pretty tragic. So how do you deal with those realities in a way that feels right and in a way that feels respectful to the memories of those people without feeling depressed and wallowing in self-pity and just putting yourself in a bad place every single year? What I personally do is I try to reflect on who they were, what they did that made the world a brighter place. I isolate a lot of the traits that made me actually look up to them. Things like dedication to their jobs, their families, the people around them. Kindness whenever, the situation wasn't necessarily primed for kindness. Optimism under really bad circumstances. Intellectual curiosity. And really fundamentally a desire to help others and just make the world a little better. I do what I can to try to keep a lot of those things alive through a lot of the stories I tell, and through a lot of the actions I take as I'm, moving forward in life. Because as I discussed before, the most tragic thing is that they did all these things that helped make me a better person and the people around us better, but now they're missing from the lives of, the people that love them and a lot of the people that never had the opportunity to meet them. So in my opinion, the best way to honor the people we've lost is striving just to be a little bit more like them in regards to the special character traits that really change our lives. Often that bar is set a lot higher than we're ever going to actually reach. But if we're pushing that way and we're trying to get in that direction, then we're going to feel a lot of those echoes in society through the actions that we're taking and the people that we're starting to become as we're trying to hit those high bars. So they may be physically gone, but they're with each of us and they're just pushing us to be better versions of ourselves if we take that approach. So that's just kind of what was on my mind today. I just wanted to share it with everybody, and I'll just kind of turn it over back to Brandon.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. Shared from the heart, shared from experience. And now let's take this opportunity to do introductions. Dean, thanks for introducing yourself. And so I'll call it out. We'll work our way around. And so Canis, take it away, mate. Tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. And nice job there, Dean. I really appreciate those great words. For myself, I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, went there between there and college, but was really just motivated out of a sense of really patriotism. Like it might be one of the more altruistic things you do in your life where you just really feel committed to serve. And I think I knew since the time I was a little kid that I wanted to be in the Marine Corps. So no real surprise there. But I ended up in Marine Corps Infantry. I was an infantry rifleman and then over to the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion. And I was in 85 to 89.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here, mate. Dave.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm just grateful and honored to be here, especially on Memorial Day. A lot of respect for the Mankind Project and the things that are happening there, and being able to be here. This is I was telling Brandon earlier today. This is my absolute favorite holiday. There are a lot of other reasons to celebrate and experience life and spend time with family and friends and whatnot. But this is one of the most touching and most important things that I think we can do is to remember, honor, and respect those that have sacrificed either just their time serving, and especially those that have given their lives, and the families that lost their loved ones, to be able to make sure that freedom and opportunities are available for the rest of us. So grateful to be here and with the rest of these great veterans and just be able to have this conversation. So my name is Dave. I joined the Army in 2000. So I went into the 82nd Airborne, got to jump out of airplanes for a few years. I was in a support battalion, so got to support the infantry, which was again one of the most satisfying things that I got to do. Wasn't in the fight, but able to support the fight and work with guys to help make sure that they made it home safely was really satisfying, and just happy to be here. Thanks, Brandon.
Beautiful, Dave. Thanks for that, mate. And Alex.
Yeah, hey, Alex here. Thanks, Brandon, for having me, and thanks for inviting us on for this Memorial Day. I joined the Marine Corps a little bit after high school. I took the summer off to party and make mistakes before I ran off to join. I signed the papers in 2004, and then joined in 2005 as a heavy equipment operator. deployed to Iraq as a machine gunner on top of a Humvee because they just don't need heavy equipment operators out there at the time. And then I lat moved to do reconnaissance, first reconnaissance battalion in Camp Pendleton, California, and did a deployment to Afghanistan for 7 months, and then got out. So that's kind of my short little military bio.
Beautiful, Alex. Thanks for checking in, mate. And Philip, across the pond.
Hey ho, everybody. So a little bit about me. I know Brandon through the Mankind Project, and so I'm grateful for the invitation here today. Dean, some beautiful words and a really interesting perspective, and I guess I'd done that, but not with that kind of consciousness. So I'm going to invite some of that into my life and probably spread it that way. So beautiful. Thank you for that. I said grateful to Brandon and the invitation here today. I joined the Army in June of '88 and got out on the leap day of 2004, so 29 Feb. I was infantry for the majority of that time and loved the physicality and the camaraderie of the job, embraced that part. I ended up getting out basically because I couldn't see any more progress for me, just because of a knee injury that I got. And so I went from being a physical training instructor through to a physical health and education teacher outside of the Army when I got out. I served on operations in Somalia in '93 and East Timor in 2001. Oh,
Beautiful, Philip. Thanks for checking in, mate. Alex, first things first, mate. I wanna start with you. What does this day mean to you? For you personally, like, is this something? And are there any particular like rituals or things that you like to do during a day like today?
So this day, a lot of it is about the family of the people who've passed. So there are a lot of people. There's a handful of people that I know that I follow their parents' Facebooks, right, or the pages that they've started for these people to honor them. And for me, I just think about them. I've been through one of the worst experiences I had in the military was just going to a funeral and hearing just the wails and the cries of the family. So for me, like, I think about those people, and I think about the loss of the family, of the people that are still here that are continuing to suffer something that happened a decade or more ago. I think about the girlfriends they would have had, the children they could have had. I think of all those things. And I'm just really grateful and lucky that, it wasn't my vehicle that ran over that IED, right? Or it wasn't me that was shot. It wasn't me in the Humvee that rolled over. I'm grateful that that I wasn't the one to happen to have that experience, but I know people who have. I know people who survived that as well. So, for me, Memorial Day is also for the people that are disfigured, the people who, have difficulty holding a job, who can't sleep, who need to take medication every single day just to function in society. So for me, Memorial Day is just really remembering a lot of the suffering that's been happening. And I typically go shopping because there are lots of really good sales on Memorial Day. So yeah, I'll end it on that note.
And so you bring up a really, really, the thing that stuck out the most for me was remembering. It's an opportunity to remember. And so, Canis, and I'm curious, how do you choose to remember those that we've lost? And what are your thoughts on some ways that we can focus on perhaps the positive side to the lives of those people that we had with us?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a particularly great answer to that, but I guess what I find myself doing is a lot like Alex talked about. There was a moment where I got on a helicopter and I stepped off because we got transferred over to another helicopter last second, and we took off. And Alex or Dean would tell you, and Alex, anybody, or I guess everybody in this group, but anybody who's been in helicopters knows they're really loud. Like you can't really hear much. And usually you get on the thing and you're not too stressed. Like, they're giving a life vest, or you've got, I don't know, Dean, what's the proper word for the headphones we're given with the little helmet, but you kind of slap that stuff on. You don't really strap it up. You kind of have a seatbelt near you, but you don't really put that thing on. And all of a sudden, like you could just hear the crew chief as clear as day just go, "Oh, fuck." And our helicopter just spun and we just dropped. And we didn't know what was going on, but we knew we were loaded down with a ton of gear, a lot of rope rescue gear and stuff, and started chucked it off. But very quickly our helicopter regained control, and then what we could see was the helicopter that we had just been on, that we just got transferred out of, it just crashed into the ocean. And so I think about this moment a lot. I think about some other things, but in particular, I ended up losing 15 friends that night, and we managed to save 8, but it was I'm even getting kind of choked up now, but it's a crazy moment. And in particular, I was chatting with this, I think it was probably a second or first lieutenant from the state platoon that was with us, who happened to be sitting on that helicopter where I sat, and he didn't make it out. And but what I often think about is that conversation we were having. We had come out of Hong Kong, and we had been drinking a lot of really good wine, and running around over there, and that's kind of what we were chatting about. So I often think that like those moments, like if I never had a chance to talk to his family, but if like there was anything I could tell him, was this sort of this moment of happiness that we were actually having, like right before this like crazy tragic thing happened. So I find that I'm quite often usually on a trail someplace. I'm doing some sort of running usually, or mountain biking or whatever it is. And quite often I'm alone. And, I think about this moment in particular and feel how lucky and grateful I feel to have escaped that. And then later in life, you start to realize, like, not to get too off topic, but just, so by chance, there's a video that's out there, and it's of a helicopter crashing off the back of the fantail of a ship, and it's with First Force reconnaissance. And someone had reached out to me, I think, I'm trying to remember now, it was the father of one of the guys, Starling, anyways, who was on the crash. And I probably have seen this video, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times, that just floats around the internet. And of course I feel this point of connection to it given my experience. But then what really rocked me was literally just 2 years ago, I found out one of my buddies was on that and didn't survive. And Ski didn't make it. And I had no idea. Like I probably watched that video just like, oh my God, look at this. And then to find that out, kind of rocked me a little bit. And I think as you go through time, like you learn about different friends of yours or people you were stationed with that feel like brothers, that that you go off to different units and people are doing different things. Then you hear these stories. I think about a buddy of mine, JT, that I was roommates with. And luckily for him, he survives this experience. And it's almost kind of a funny moment because he essentially got shot in the ass, and he's got a ton of photos of him laying on the ground with his friends, like patching him up and them goofing around. But so it's a long, convoluted answer, but I think about all of these things for me personally. I don't really ever talk about them, but like it's usually what's in my head. And then, there's this kind of weird experience of pre 9/11 service to post 9/11 service, and the way people treat you for like the entire time after I got out. Maybe somebody would say, tell me about the brainwashing when you're in the military. They think the entire military is boot camp. They kind of, that was sort of what they pictured. And then you get to this post 9/11 reality where people now say, thank you for your service. And like that kind of stuff didn't happen. So there's a greater awareness of Memorial Day, I think, in the States than there was prior, and probably appropriately, and like people understanding it more and respecting it more. But then I sometimes find people that are starting to feel guilty about enjoying their barbecue or something. And, I guess my other sort of thought is like, it's okay to enjoy that moment. It's just, that's why people join the service and why these people make the sacrifice. And it's not that they wanted to, but it just happened. And sometimes, you're not expecting it, and all of a sudden it's there, and that's your reality. But it's okay to celebrate and enjoy that day. And that's, I find some balance in that is what I look for.
I think that wound your buddy got in the buttocks is what they call $1 million wound.
No, maybe only for bragging rights for JT. I think, JT had gone out, he got an SF, and I'm not sure what happened, but he's taken a ton of grief from getting shot in that particular position, as did a buddy of his at the time. But I'm glad he, really is okay. So.
Yeah, thank goodness. Good to hear. And, that seems to be a common sentiment now, which is really great to hear, is about, let's enjoy these liberties. Let's enjoy these things that we have, these moments that we can share with our families that, who knows how history could turn out without the sacrifice of those that have sacrificed their lives. And so anyone else have anything on their heart that they want to share in relation to any stories? Philip?
I just want to touch base from an Australian perspective too. When I last couple of years I've done a bit of travel through the US, I'm going to say just that difference that you speak about, Canis, about the gratitude pre and post 9/11. I travel in the States, and just especially through airports in particular, and the announcements that come over about thank you for military people in their service, and then escalating them their travel to try and get home to family and or wherever they're traveling a bit faster, or make it a little bit more pleasant for military people, is I found that really Catholic as traveling through the States, that there was some kind of gratitude in the open, as compared to Australia. We just it seems to be we only remember our fallen on our Memorial Day and maybe Remembrance Day, so twice a year, and other than that, it's not really paid attention to. So I found that really helpful for kind of to appreciate my service, because for a long time there I felt and still do, it's that really weird thing about Memorial Days of being grateful that I'm alive and survived my time, but also guilty for having survived it when I know so many others haven't. So yeah, it's a really weird duality that I think Dean mentioned before. Can be a tough day at times, but I look forward to the sharing a beer with my fellow soldiers, peers that are still around, and having these kinds of chats and connecting, remembering the stories, the funny stories, and remembering the names of the people that are no longer with us. And
yeah, if I was going to add in, I'm not sure, because you were in, you got in right when I was in too, and there's also like this difference of social media. So like, when I first got in and I was over there, like, we didn't have a cell phone, there were no computers, there was no social media, and a lot of my guys I was in with actually talk about that like great times, because there was no other way to have an interaction with someone. Like, you were just with the guys you were stationed with. But it's interesting. Here we have this a group called National Ability Center. The National Ability Center in Park City, Utah, does incredible work for all kinds of people with all kinds of different disabilities. There could be physical and mental and challenges, and they've really started to tap into helping veterans now, obviously with PTSD and other issues. But you could be a small child or an adult or somebody that, maybe you're a para or a quad, or, you an amputee or something. And this is a place you would go to. And I got invited down to, I think they called like Salute Our Heroes. And it was this thing where they were basically doing a giant fundraiser. But I actually went, until just a couple of years ago, I haven't really been hanging out with anybody that I was in the military with, because we all kind of lost contact until Facebook came around, and now I've regrouped with a lot of them, which has been incredible. And even like being here with you guys right now, this is probably one of the more, focused or dedicated times of being around other, vets or military people that I've had. Like, the lingo that we can use, like that other people wouldn't know what we're talking about, but so I had that experience. I went down to the Salute Our Heroes, this fundraising event, and the Marines in the group will laugh. So I've been away from this thing for a long time, and I could feel like, hey, I'm back home. I'm with, my brothers and sisters here. But so they said all the people in the Air Force stand up and all the people in the Army. And then when they said the Marine Corps, without knowing where anybody else was or who was there, of course you let out this loud hoorah, and I was very happy to find out that every single other one did the same thing. And I wasn't like some jackass who did it by myself. But I find this is a unique experience, this idea of being around other people that have been in the military, because I really feel like I got out and spent all my time, not on purpose, but just away from it. So it's kind of nice to actually reconnect with other people that have been in.
Yeah, you remind me of actually a funny story too, when you talk about the difference between social media connection back to civilization too, whilst on deployment. I know that when I first deployed to Somalia in 93, I was a young single bloke, and the only way we could get contact back, well, we had mail, but took so long for stuff to get back and forth. We had once a week, we'd have a 10-minute radio call that would go halfway around the world to be able to then talk to someone through a phone at home. It was so much hassle, and because I was single and I didn't really care about it, I used to trade my 10 minutes for the married guys, so they'd have extra time to talk to their families and stuff, which was quite profitable. But it used to, and being hard and green as I was back then, the married guys would come back and they'd be all in tears and going, "Oh, I miss my family and I miss my kids," and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, harden up, get over it. And when I went to Timor, and at that time I had a wife and kids as well, and we just started to get essentially a mobile phone that we could use a satellite phone that we could use to call back to Australia. So it was a direct call, still about 10, 15 minutes we had. And we had access to some email if we wanted to. I remember going to those calls and come back from them. I'd be coming back to my tent and I'd be all in tears and going, "I miss my wife, I miss my kids," and go, "Geez, I just need to give myself an uppercut. Like, I can't believe who is this guy that marriage and children can change a man's perspective on life and why it's there too." How about you guys?
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think that's kind of what I think makes things like this particular day real, right? Because I think we've all experienced a lot of interesting activities, and it's a lot different whenever it's just you and your own world experiencing your own good and high and low points, versus if you have a family to share it with, or a family that's going to either reap the rewards of the good things that have happened, or deal with the fallout of the bad things that have happened. And it really is an interesting experience. I was kind of thinking back to what you were talking about earlier with the respect in the airports and the like. And I think that stuff does matter in a way that maybe not in like the hero worship kind of a way like that. I think that it's often portrayed, which is I don't really like personally, but more in a way where I think it's therapeutic for a lot of families who they're trying to find purpose in like the loss of a loved one, or the loss of who that person was if they come back kind of a shell of themselves. And it kind of brings to mind a couple people that there's a lot of people I've lost friends I've lost, but there's two in particular that kind of stand out just because I was so close to the kind of the fallout in the family of that. So one was Lance Corporal Little. So in February of 2012, there was a helicopter crash and we lost several Marines. And one of them was Lance Corporal Little, who actually took my place on the flight that night. So to the survivor's guilt, like completely understand, like that stuff eats away at you. But I was really tight with him, and his family requested that I escorted, his remains back to Georgia where he was from. And so going through that experience, it changed me a lot. Because, you go in, you're just kind of this dumb kid who's just trying to, go into the military because it's cool, or, you're patriotic, whatever your motivations are. And now all of a sudden you're in this world where like, a family has had a loved one pulled away from them, a husband, or, a wife no longer has a husband, a child no longer has a dad, a family like fathers, mothers, they don't have a son, brothers, sisters no longer have their brother. Like it's a very difficult situation, and being there firsthand and kind of dealing with that myself. I remember whenever we went to go pick up his remains from where he was and get to that airport in San Diego on the way to Georgia. It was kind of a different thing. Like you said, I was walking through the airport in the dress blues, and I think a lot of people understood what was happening. There was a lot of somber respect going on. Whenever we were loading the caskets up and down the different airplanes we were on, like everybody was kind of standing up, like very somber, saluting type stuff. They had people on the flight decks. They had full escorts for the remains as we left the airport, and we were going down motorcades, and there was just people surrounding the streets just to show up in town. And then once we got in town, we did this whole experience. We ended up, having the actual funeral itself, and then going to take him to where he's actually going to, his final resting place there in Georgia in the military cemetery. And I would say for a good 20, 30 miles, there were just cars lining the sides of the freeway. People just kind of paying their respects, pulled over in the middle of rush hour traffic in like the Atlanta area, which would be like, full on LA, just pulled over, completely shut down. It was very interesting. And, while, like I said before, like I don't really like that, hero worship dynamic. I think that happens with living veterans, but like letting their families see that and kind of seeing like how much people actually cared and like gave a shit about their loss, like, and wanted to be supportive. I noticed it was very therapeutic for the loved ones, and it meant a lot. So I'd done that particular experience with Eric Seaman. So me and him we were part of the escorts who came back, and then in 2015, after I got out of the military, I was in class one day, and I got a text from a friend saying that there was an incident in Nepal after the earthquake happened. So Eric Seaman was there with a group of other friends who I know, and they ended up crashing a helicopter providing humanitarian relief for the people in Nepal, trying to save lives out there for people who really didn't have anywhere else to turn. And so since I was close with his wife, or that now his widow, because of that initial experience with Corey Little, she asked me to kind of come over and just be there with the family through everything that was happening. And I basically just watched a repeat of that exact scenario where all of Southern California shut down from the San Diego airport for about a 2-hour drive into Temecula. Like there was completely freeway shut down, people lining every single, like on the sides, people over the overpasses. And while you can't bring people back and you can't replace what they were to, the lives of the people who lost them. I do think displays like that do mean a lot to give purpose to that loss. And it creates a little bit more of a meaning instead of just, why did this happen? This, there's no point, none of this. Like it changes it into a dynamic where people are actually like proud of what they did, the sacrifices they put in, because they know it matters to the world, not just to them. So, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get that out there and just see what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, I think that's some fantastic points. And while you're talking about that, I was thinking too that those displays are fantastic. It used to kind of bug me sometimes when I'd see like those yellow ribbon bumper stickers that people had. Like that's really nice, but I mean, what is that doing for somebody? So when people actually take the time to those experiences where somebody buys somebody a meal in a restaurant, or like Phil was saying about upgrading somebody on their flight, those little things make a big difference. Well, I think another thing that we get from that too is that as we have those kind of things going on, that I think that's really good for us as a society as well. It's really therapeutic and good for the families and the individual veterans to get that kind of recognition. But as we see those kind of things, we're often so disconnected from the suffering that's in the world, or the hardships or the sacrifices that are made. Having these things displayed, and having Memorial Day where you have big events where you have the cemeteries that are just lined with flags, and all the different parades and displays and all those kind of things, to be able to bring all the sacrifices back to the remembrance of people. There's so many good tributes that are made all the time, and just helps us to remember and recognize that we have so much to be grateful for. There are so many people that have given so much that we need to live our lives in such a way that the sacrifices that have been made mean something. so we can carry the memory of those people forward in living the best of the lives that we have. So, I think that's the best tribute that we can do for those that have made that sacrifice. Memorial Day, like I said, it's one of my favorite holidays, and I think the best way to celebrate that is that you have somber moments amidst a celebration. I think it's great and kind of meaningful that Memorial Day in America is the beginning of summertime. It's the beginning of all the growth and all the great things that happen through summer. And there's kind of that rebirth that we go through every single year. And we can look at that in the same way with Memorial Day, that there are so many sacrifices, so many people have died, so many people have given so much to make all the freedoms and all the possibilities available for the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to add, I really like that point that Memorial Day really for a lot of people is the start of summer. It's the start of really good things about to happen, good things happening. And that's what a lot of people join the service for, is because they want their families to continue to be able to have those good times, right? Like I know when I was deployed, I missed 4th of July's, I missed Halloween's, I missed years of pop culture. I came back, I didn't know what the best songs were. I didn't know what movies people were watching. It's like I was in a coma for 2 years. And you come back and everyone's different. Your siblings are older, your parents are older, they're driving new cars, they live in new houses. The world moved on without you. And that's kind of a difficult reality sometimes for some people. I'm grateful for a lot of the benefits that we get as veterans, like the GI Bill and the VA loan and things like that. But that's not why I joined. I thought I was going to join and I was going to be eating bread, water, potatoes maybe, and my life was going to suck for 4 years, and I was going to get out and have to figure things out on my own. I was pleasantly surprised at all the benefits that a lot of us veterans are getting. But there's still so much more that we can do. There are a lot of veterans who are still suffering. There are a lot of families that are still suffering too. We honor the veterans. And like Philip, like you were saying, it was really difficult for you and a lot of your fellow service members when they missed their families. But we had families that were crying just as much as we were, or even more. I feel like they deserve a lot of the benefits that we're getting. They deserve the discounts, the free meals, all that stuff, because we're putting them through a world of crap. I joined 18 years old, just wanted to get out of the house. And I didn't realize until years later, I had a family that was just constantly terrified and worried that they might get that phone call one day, or that they might have, that car driving up to their house and someone in, Marine Corps Blues walking up to the doorstep. That's probably one of the most terrifying things for some families that have they've ever seen. And that's ingrained in some people's minds. That's a permanent memory for a lot of families. So yeah, that hits me in the jewels when I say that. And anyone have anything else to add about that?
Yeah, I would say to the discussion earlier about going out and trying to make something of your life after, and kind of living in honor of their memories. I actually kind of had a breakthrough in the last couple of years about that, because I was dealing with a lot of that survivor's guilt and a lot of that weight that you kind of realize, like you were saying, Alex, that we put our families through a lot, and the families of all the people we care about. Those who made it through their enlistments and those who didn't, they also went through a lot. And I think that starts to weigh on us a lot of the time. And you kind of, again, start to wonder what the point of it all is, especially if you're in a really bad place and you feel like, it could have been me, what am I doing? Where's my head at? They could have, been with their families. Like, you get in all those thought patterns. And then one day last year, I was actually at a concert, and I don't know, something just clicked for me. And I realized, like, in that moment, I was finally living a life that was, worth a sacrifice. It was something they would look down and say, like, wow, I'm actually happy that they're there living this life, that I'm proud of them being able to move forward and be, a person they're proud of and the person they want to be. And up until that point, I don't think that ever happened for me. And it started when I started aligning a lot of what I was saying earlier, the values and the character traits they put out there. And I realized what it is that they put out in the world. And I started to try to embody that and become more of the person I thought they wanted me to be and that I thought I should be. And after doing that and putting through that effort, I was able to move past a lot of those issues that I had before. And I would love for more and more veterans and families of veterans to be able to people who've lost their loved ones, be able to do that. To be able to start looking at what it is that they want to get out of life, to kind of, restore their dreams again and feel like they can move on in a way. They can live their lives and be happy and be proud of the things they're doing while not dishonoring the memory of the people that are there are not there anymore, because those people actually want that for you. If they could talk to you, they'd tell you to go out and live a life that you're proud of, live a life that, that they would want to live if they were here. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that in relation to kind of survivor's guilt, finding purpose after, and maybe any relation to their families, but that's something that's definitely on my mind pretty heavily, very often.
Yeah, I always have this sort of distinct memory of when, in that story of that helicopter crash I was talking about, but I really kind of get brought back to the next morning quite often when we had to go pack up all the gear. So we were on a ship, and then there was a really surreal moment of, these guys that we lost disappeared in the ocean. So there were no bodies. There was the stories of the 8 that made it out, and then, we sat with them. So, after we got down on the well deck, and I remember watching, I guess I don't know if it was a pilot, but it looked like it was a pilot's helmet or one of the crew members' helmets floating in the water, just off the fantail, as we were out there trying to get the Zodiacs out to go out and see what we could do. And we sat with the guys that evening, that were on the helicopter that had just survived the crash, and kind of just listened, heard their stories. They managed to get like some soup and water and stuff for those guys just so they could decompress. But the next day was the one that really kind of, I wouldn't say it haunts me, but it's a memory I can't shake ever, because we just went over and we were just pulled out the bags and we were just starting to pack up everybody's gear and, starting that process of, we got to get the 8 guys off the ship. They're really freaked out about having to take off again. Just that kind of stuff. So I don't know if it's survivor's guilt, but I find that kind of moment hard. And I often think back to the fact that I had just been on that helicopter, moments before, and like where I was physically sitting and who was sitting there when they reloaded it. And see, that kind of stuff, I don't know. I don't talk about it much, but it always is in the back of my mind. And it's definitely more of a survivor's guilt kind of thing. But, it gets kind of hard too. I'm not sure for everybody, but you get out, right? Like you've had this intense focus the entire time you're in, and, like service and what you're doing, and you're thinking about global politics and, everything else that's going on. And then you get out and everybody's thinking about where they're going to go out to eat that night, or I don't know, just the whole like shift of priorities. Like that's all part of what makes that transition out so hard, is like, you have to do it, and, you find your way through it, hopefully. But I would say, like, not off the topic of survivor's guilt, but I'm immensely empathetic to anybody else who's getting out, to try to help them out in any way I can, if it's just finding their path once they get out. Because like, you've got all this stuff in your head and nobody in your family is really able to relate to it in the way that your friends can. And then you got to get out and just sort of jump back into civilian life and start figuring that out. So that, I don't know, I don't feel like it's guilt. I just feel like it's constant thoughts that I just never lose.
That last bit's a really good point, I think. And I've been doing a bit of work with one of our veterans return veterans support services here in Oz around it. We spend here in the Australian Army, we spend about 6 months going from off the street. We take usually an 18-year-old off the streets, young man, still impressionable. And then we spend 6 months training them, and then whatever time they do in service as well. And then when the decision's made to get out, it's usually a couple of weeks before they get out, and then they're out suddenly, and all of a sudden they've got to unlearn that X amount of years of, for us, it's a minimum of 4 years service. We've got to unlearn that and then relearn how to operate as a 24, 25-year-old, how all their mates that they used to go to high school with, because it's kind of, and they're just on such a different, they're on such a different level to where I was at when I got out, or even when I come back home for holidays and leave. It was just, I found that hard to actually maintain those friendships at all. It was always then about military people. And then when you get out and you're still trying to work out, well, how do I go and work for someone who isn't military or doesn't get that, or be around other people that don't get military humour as well, because we kind of have sometimes a bit of a perverse sense of humour at times.
Beautiful sharing, man. I have to say, I'm so honored and grateful to have had a front row seat to this conversation. You know, experiences that you're allowing me an insight into. I feel very grateful, and I'm sure many others who have joined us this evening very much feel the same. So thank you to all of you. As we wrap up, I just wanted to create an opportunity for each of you to share, you know, what is just a short message you would love to share to anyone that's being impacted by just this day? You know, whoever, whether it's extended, you know, whether it's family members, whether it's, you know, people that have come out of the service, something that you just want to leave with them on this day, and then we'll close things up. So anyone can start. Dana.
Yeah, I'd just like to say you're not alone. You know, if you're transitioning out and you're confused, like, so is everybody else. If you're, you know, a family member, you've lost a loved one and you're still devastated, thousands of people out there just like you, they're making it through. They're making it through each day. You know, if you're dealing with whatever kind of issues you're dealing with, from, you know, losing friends, losing family members, like, talk to somebody. Nobody's going to look down on you by, you know, if you share what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and maybe what you would just aspire to be, or what you would aspire to start thinking. You're not the first person to go through it. You won't be the last person to go through it. And if you ask for a helping hand, you'd be surprised at how many people would be more than happy to be there and be that helping hand. So reach out if you need it.
Thank you, Dane. And Dave.
Yeah, that's excellent, Dean. I know that's a big thing, and I know there's a lot of resources out there, and I know that people struggle getting out. So yeah, I echo that first of all. That please know that, if you are a service member, you know, thank you for your service. If you're getting out, again, thank you for your service, and there's a lot of life to live post-military, and you have awful lot to offer. So, you know, you develop those skills and keep on going. And I don't know where I heard it first, but try to paraphrase it. The best way that we can honor those that have died is to be the kind of people that are worth dying for. So, you know, as we all live our lives, if we keep that in mind, then, you know, this world will be a whole lot better place if we all express a little bit more gratitude, if we're all striving to be better people, and knowing that somebody has given their life so that we can live.
Beautiful sentiment, Dave. Thank you. Alex.
Yeah, Dave and Dean, really well said. I mean, just to echo the things that you've mentioned, like, you know, if I had died and I came back as a ghost and I saw someone crying over me, I'd say, stop being a little bitch. This is why I died, so you can go out and party and have fun and have kids and live your life. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Alex. And Philip.
I would, for me, I think for anyone to, I guess the most soothing words for me that I've experienced for any serviceman is that recognition that your service mattered. So thank you for your service is just it's massive. And like I said, when I was traveling through the States, to hear that as often as I did was just like, wow, I really felt that. I really felt like, even though I wasn't part of the American Army or anything, but had served with alongside of, I found that really a powerful message for the community to go, yeah, it's honor. It's not hero worship, but just honoring that men and women, service people across the country and across the world are going out and doing their best to make sure that you can, other people who aren't part of that, have their best life, or the opportunity to have their best life. For other servicemen, I would say, we'll look at this call here. Military service can cross nations and cross boundaries, and we all have been through similar turmoil, hardships, great times, found humour in the weirdest of predicaments, found sadness in ultimate grief, and these things that we share make us united as brothers and sisters, and that's powerful. So it's hard when you're in the foxhole or the pit. We call it a pit here. If you're when you're in that hole, to hold your hand out and ask for help. It's not weakness. It's actually true courage, in my judgment, to reach out and ask for that help. So please do connect with the people that you served with, and they'll understand because they've served with you. And even if they haven't, if they've served, they'll understand. Without a doubt.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. And Canis.
Well, I don't really know what to say other than I think what everyone else here said is spot on. It's incredible. I guess, while we're on that sort of topic or that note of, for anyone who is in or who needs help, or anyone who's just gotten out, and even if it's just, like I said, just finding your way in civilian life, or if you're dealing with some things that you just need someone who can relate to you, to absolutely reach out to another person, probably anybody that was in the military. As much as we love to give each other shit for, one branch over the other branch and stuff, like, we're thick as thieves, though, when it comes down to it. You don't let anybody from the outside mess with anybody. And so it really doesn't matter what branch somebody was in. Like, anybody who served, I'm sure would be there and have your back and help you out. And, that's... I've worked in the outdoor industry for a long time, and so I sell shoes and clothes and stuff. But like, every once in a while, I'll be around some fellow military people, and when everybody else is losing their minds and like the workload is so hard or they're up so late, everybody else who was served is just like, it's no big deal. Like, this is nothing really. No one's shooting at me, and like, I'm not helping a ruck, and everything's actually pretty easy. So there's a different perspective that one has, and I kind of rambling a bit, but I would just say to anyone who is not served to not worry about understanding all the details of what someone had. I think the things the guys here mentioned, where when you say thank you for your service, as awkward as that feels to me when someone says it, I never know what to say back. The pattern of it means the world. It really does make a difference over time. And you really should enjoy Memorial Day. You should just find that moment of peace or to reflection, to think about whether it's someone in your family and depending on which generation, or some, maybe a friend down the street, or you're probably not but like one person removed from knowing somebody that has been in the military and served, or made that sacrifice. And I think if you just have that moment of reflection and think about that and try to carry that forward in your life, but then go enjoy life and enjoy the holiday and enjoy the summer, that's probably what most would want.
Beautiful. Great perspective there, Canis, for those who haven't served, to give them an insight into it as well. Thank you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge Kalani Kreutzberg from Camis and Canines, or one of the co-founders of Camis and Canines down in San Diego, where they help homeless veterans find their feet by sponsoring them for 6 months through the VA, helping them get their confidence back, helping them train a service animal while they're there. They work on the property and help them find their purpose and alignment again. And Kleinick unfortunately couldn't join us this evening, but I just wanted to speak to his name and let him know that he is loved. He's been on the show a couple times. He always brings a lot of fire and energy. So he was missed this episode. But men, thank you so much for being here on this very special episode of Mask Off Monday. And for those of you out there, especially those that are particularly, wondering how they can support others that have been experienced or touched by those that have served, is to, just remember, as Kenneth said, just, you never know the impact you can have by just, whether it's just spotting a meal or just going up to someone and just, expressing your gratitude to them. And remember, the best way we can honor those that, gave their lives for us, as Dave said, was to live a life worth dying for. Sound the awesome cannons, pin medals to each breast. Attention, honor guard, give them a hero's rest. Recite their names to the heavens, to the stars acknowledge their kin. Then let the land they defended gather them in again. This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. I have been your host, Brandon Clift, and I personally want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. And of course, I want to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you make it a heck of a lot easier for us to let men out there in the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. Special thanks, of course, goes to my incredible team, Marketing and Communications Director Boyson Hodgson, producer and editor of this episode, Michael Russo, who makes me sound so much more intelligent than I actually am, so of course, special kudos goes there. And if you've been enjoying the music throughout this episode and all of our episodes, check out Jim, Donovan, and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So my friend, pick up the pen and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.
Hey, it's Boyson. On the Mankind Podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hey, it's Poison. On the Mankind podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.